following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoneman and I'm your host on this program. Well, we are in the fall of 2021. We're heading for an election season just next month, just a few weeks away, really. November 2nd, I believe, is election day here in Nashua, municipal elections in the state. Anytime we think about elections, we tend to focus on the big years. We think about 2020, we think about 2022 coming up, and we often think about the balance of power, especially in Washington as we're looking at what's going on in our federal government. We find a government that's very divided, highly partisan, and in many sense, imbalanced, and we don't like that. We have a chance, I think, in our municipal elections to restore some of the balance or to maintain the balance, especially in local government. This is very important because I think it really begins locally and then it carries over to the state and to the federal level. Now, today we're going to be talking about maintaining balance in a very important board here in the city of Nashua, and that's the Board of Public Works. With me today to talk about this issue here in Nashua is Commissioner Tracy Pappas, who's been a member of the Board of Public Works for some time. She brings balance. In fact, I think she epitomizes the balance that we need to have and maintain in the city of Nashua. Tracy, welcome.
Hey, David.
Thank you very much for coming in. Really appreciate having you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I remember how when I was on the Board of Aldermen, and if someone called me with a constituent issue that related to public works, I would pick up the phone and call you. And if someone called you with something that related to the Board of Aldermen, you would call me. We had a good working relationship. Always enjoyed working with you, and I'm delighted that my wife now, Shannon Schoneman, is on the board and is able to serve with you too.
She's doing a great job.
Well, great. I'm glad to hear that. We talk about it over dinner sometimes. She doesn't like to bring it home, but we do, and I'm grateful for the chance to kind of stay involved and hear what's going on. So thank you very much for coming in. Tell us a little bit about your history on the board and why you're running again. What you think is so important. How is balance going to be maintained?
Well, David, first off, it's really been an honor that all these years that the citizens of Nashua, from every political perspective, have voted for me. And that means a lot to me. And I think that everyone should be heard, everyone should be listened to, everyone should have a place at the table. I also take the approach that the taxpayers' money I treat like my own money. And you can't vote no on every spending item, but you can't vote yes on everything either. At some point, choices have to be made. And I remember when we were ready to purchase Burke Street, no one ever showed me the figures in writing, and so I voted no on that. We ended up losing a substantial amount of money on that.
Yeah, when I was on the Board of Aldermen, I voted in favor of that, and it sounded like it was good. But what really convinced me on that one was the need to maintain an extra parcel for expansion of wastewater, and that's how I justified it. But right, there tended to be, suddenly this emergency. We have to buy this thing right now. This is the last opportunity. And it's very difficult to make decisions under those circumstances. So we didn't have all the numbers. And of course, after it was approved and bought, then we started to look at it more closely and what happened to the numbers.
Well, I want to say that they initially said it was going to cost $13 million for the whole public works to go over there.
Right.
And that turned out to be $57 million.
Right. I think there are a few stages in the middle, but it got to $57 million. Right. And I think that kind of thing happens a lot with public works projects. I don't mean just public works. I mean anything that city funds is government funds, because they sell it to the public with one price tag. And then once the commitment is made to it, it's very hard to back out of it. Now, in the case of the $57 million project down at the Burke Street, the city did pull out of that, which I think was wise. And we sold the building, but as you say, at a loss. So here, this emergency, we have to do it, became in the end a loss. And it would have been wiser to think it through.
Right. But on the positive side, I think investing in our roads was a great thing. When I looked at the presentation put forth by Stantec Art engineers, if we didn't put money into the roads, we'd have more roads fail. So so it would cost so much money to have to totally redo roads. By that I mean, rather than just resurfacing, you do some you strip it down. You strip it down to the dirt. It's called reclaiming, and that costs a fortune.
Yes.
So it's like ignoring your roof, and then you start getting mold damage and that sort of thing. So I'm very proud of my vote, and I'm very happy that we're taking paving seriously. I really like to get back to basics. Here in Nashua, people want good parks, they want good sidewalks, they want decent roads. We do things that parents do in running a household. Nobody knows it gets done until it doesn't get done. I mean, if your trash doesn't get picked up, it's very upsetting. Roads aren't done properly. It's extremely disconcerting for people. Now, one of the items I'm excited about, which is way low down on the totem pole, is relining of our sewer pipes. We were having lots of sinkholes and that sort of thing, and we are I want to say circa 1860s. Some of our sewers. So to replace them, then you're digging up roads, and that's that much more money, that much more upset. So we're investing significant money into just lining the pipes. The sewer pipes that are good at they determine whether the pipes are strong enough to handle that. And I want to say that it's about 1/25 of the cost.
Wow.
Without including paving or digging up or anything. And that's an investment I'm proud of. And some of the investments we don't have a choice with. We have to answer to DES, for example. We really have to keep up with our wastewater treatment facility. And their word goes. If they shut down our wastewater treatment facility, we'd have to pay to truck the sludge out. So, you really have to stay tuned into that. That's a huge asset to the city. Our landfill, I think we're the only city or town with a municipal landfill. I don't know, maybe Lebanon may have one, but we're the only big city with a landfill, and that I want to keep that landfill going as long as possible. But we got to listen to DES. We have to follow the rules. It's not cheap.
So there are certain things that, in order to maintain this balance, we have to spend some money on the wise things that really need to be done, and maybe be more careful whenever we can on things that might appear to be optional. I think your case in point, you talked about the landfill and, of course, wastewater treatment. These things are necessary. We have to keep that going. But you also mentioned Burke Street, which was an option. It sounded like a good plan, but we should have put the brakes on that. So balance means we don't say no to everything. We don't say yes to everything. We have to figure out really what is in the best interest of the taxpayers in the city of Nashua. And I think you've done a very good job at that.
Thank you. And I think that we've actually are on a schedule with different parks. I know right now over off of Exit 4, I think it's St. Andrews. That's one has been ignored for a long time. And just to occasionally have to keep up with things rather than to do totally nothing and have everything just go to the point where it gets so expensive that we have to bond money to fix it.
Right. Well, that's what happened with the roads. I voted in favor of the road program, too. I wasn't wild about the fact that we had to bond it. I don't think that was right.
Agreed.
I think that, we're bonded, I think as a 20-year bond on roads that are going to last 15 years or something along those lines. And you don't want your debt on something to be longer. Your debt term would be longer than the useful term of the thing you're buying. And the reason we got into that, or painted into that corner, is because I think we were robbing over the years, robbing the paving budget.
Correct.
Which really should be an operational issue. It's an operational expense, not a not a capital expense.
Correct.
It should be every year you do enough. And we were down to the point where we're doing a couple $100,000 a year. That's nothing. That's like 10 feet or something.
Right.
And the whole city, that's not nearly enough. We have to really invest some serious money. But in order to do that, the mayors who were putting together those budgets had to pull money away from their little cronies out there. And I think there's a lot of cronies who benefit from the largesse of the city. And I don't approve of that. I don't think you do either.
No.
So if we can get back to a point where we're not bonding things that should be operational expenses and actually fitting it into the budget, that'd be the way to do it.
Realistic.
Right.
We all have to have our own realistic budget.
Right.
And I think getting back to basics. There was a big to do when it was our public works folks were doing the sidewalks downtown. Well, we're not a construction company.
Right.
And we really, it was really hard to figure out the total cost for that. And I think we're spending a great deal of money downtown. Everyone wants a vibrant downtown, but sometimes I feel as if the regular folks aren't being heard. We're doing 4 lanes down to 2, and perhaps those barriers had their place during COVID. But I'm hearing from the people, tear those barriers down. And my understanding is they're going to be up for another. They plan on keeping them up another couple of years, and it's just not for a month or 2.
Really?
They keep them up from. That was my understanding. And listen to infrastructure. They, I think economic development is making a good portion of these decisions, and I'd like the decisions to go back to the boards that have to face the people.
Right.
I got to face the people.
Right, and you do a good job at that too, by the way. I think that constituent services, that's one thing that you folks, and what I discovered as a Board of Aldermen member is that we're not often dealing with big policy issues. We're dealing with someone's stop sign or snow plowing or trash, those kinds of things. That's what people are concerned with. And I think we need to deliver on those things. And that means answering the phone, listening to people, and really, in a timely manner, responding to what their concerns are. And I think that you do that very well. We don't want to turn that customer service orientation into a dictatorship orientation where it's, nope, quiet, go away. We got other things to spend your money on. That's not the way to do it.
Exactly. It was quite interesting. I remember this is part of the reason I ran the first time I ran, is that they wanted to cut money at cut costs at the landfill, so they weren't going to pick up soft yard waste. I just don't. I don't think that's going to fly in Nashua. I think people pay a hefty price for what they receive, so they want decent services.
Yeah.
And as far as listening to the public goes, I've been very disappointed. And what I see is a real limiting of public comment period.
Yeah.
The folks that are in there now, for the Board of Aldermen, one used to be able to speak on an item during the first public comment period when a ordinance was first introduced. That was cut out. So now people can't address the full Board of Aldermen until pretty much everyone's made up their mind.
Yeah.
Limited to 3 minutes. Now, we were fortunate that didn't happen on the Board of Public Works until the last meeting. The mayor had mentioned that he was, had decided that it was going to be cut back to 3 minutes on the Board of Public Works. We never have much public comment. It's never a huge issue. And I just think if people have a problem, they should be able to come. They shouldn't be timed and say, excuse me, you only have 30 seconds left.
So that was just voted on, just approved recently?
Yes. The mayor had wanted to stick to the rules for the same that the Board of Aldermen does.
I see.
He's the chair. So I made a motion, and it was, I made a motion to allow at least 5 minutes for public comment. And your wife Shannon Schoneman and I voted to keep, to increase public comment, and the mayor, Commissioner Tees, and Commissioner Moriarty voted against that.
Right.
So I would like to expand if I get if we have a third person who'd be willing to listen to the public. I would like to expand the amount of time, plus have a public comment at the beginning of the
Mhm.
meeting and at the end. If
Mhm.
someone doesn't make it to the meeting, it really has not been a huge problem for us.
No, I don't think it is a problem. It's never a problem to listen to people. I would tell you my experience. I had a few town hall meetings when I was an alderman. The first one, I think people came because they hadn't been heard. A lot of people came, and they were very vocal because they hadn't been heard. But we listened. The second time I did one, there were fewer people. I think because the folks who were satisfied probably
Exactly.
stayed home. And then as time went on, we had fewer and fewer because we were always willing to listen. And it wasn't that people didn't want to hear. They knew that they could call. They knew that they had access. They knew they were being heard and advocated for on the Board of Aldermen. And we don't want to lose that. In this case, for the mayor to want that, I'm deeply concerned about that because there are some members of the board that seem to always vote with the mayor, and then others that I think you and Shannon take a closer look and try to understand what's really going on and vote on behalf of the people. We don't want any kind of rubber stamps. You've certainly not been a rubber stamp. You've served under Republican mayors and under Democrat mayors, and you've never been a rubber stamp for either. And I think those are the kinds of voices that we need
You
on the Board
know,
of Public Works and everywhere in the city.
I thank you, David, and that's something I'm really proud of.
Mm.
There's a member of the Board of Aldermen who was kind of proud that he had worked under a Republican mayor and now a Democratic mayor, and that he was called a rubber stamp, and he was kind of proud of that. And
He was
I-
proud of being a rubber stamp.
that he was accused under two different. Now, I happen to share the same party affiliation as the mayor,
Mm.
but I'm not a partisan, and I wouldn't run for a partisan election.
Yeah.
I probably, frankly, wouldn't make it through a primary. But I'm proud of my service to the people. And what I've said several times, the day I forget that it's the people I serve is the day I will quit. I
Right.
won't go on. I don't serve my fellow commissioners. I don't serve the mayor. I don't serve the Board of Aldermen. I serve the citizens of Nashua, and I won't forget that.
Well, I sure hope that folks at home are listening to that because you certainly do, and that's what we need. I want to just go back to the public comment issue just for a moment. I think you're right. We need to have expanded public comment. When I was on the Board of Aldermen, one of the things I liked best, actually being an alderman altogether, at the town hall meetings, picking up the phone or listening to people at the microphone in those meetings, I liked it. That was important. And I believe strongly in self-government, and people need to have a voice. And not every voter is going to get what they want. It just can't happen. There's a group
No.
that wants A and a group that wants B. You got to choose A or B, right? We're not always going to get what we want, but we need to be heard. And when someone's idea is rejected and their voice is not heard, then we have big trouble in this country. And I think that's what's happening. And there seems to be moves across government, the full spectrum, to silence people who dissent. And we cannot here in Nashua have dissenting voices silenced. It's generally true that someone who's going to come to speak at a public meeting probably has a contrary opinion to where they see the tide going. But that contrary opinion cannot be ignored. It needs to be
No.
listened to, and not limited to 3 minutes, not limited to 5. Someone should be able to speak. So I hope that you get reelected. I hope that you have people on the board who will stand with you. My wife will still be there because it's a 4-year
Set the
term.
Warriors,
She's not
yes.
up this term, but I hope that we get someone else in addition to you in there who will stand up for the people, who has a demonstrated history of standing up for the people. That's what we want. And we have
Yes.
candidates who have that demonstrated history of standing up
Yes,
for the people.
yeah. Lori Ortolano was running also.
Yes, she
and
is. I'm
been
delighted. I'm going to have her on in a couple of weeks.
She's been a citizen activist,
She certainly has.
and she's gone door to door and listening and hearing people.
Mm.
And you don't have to agree, and you have to try to understand someone else's side
hmm
and be respectful.
That's right.
And if you interrupt and scream and yell, or I'm never going to talk to you because I have a different view of this,
Right.
that's not productive.
No.
And as ugly as things can get when you try to get a bunch of people to agree on things,
hmm
everyone has to give up a little bit.
Right.
My neighbors they and I have we have some different views politically. We agree on some things, disagree. But what they always said is, they referred to my husband. They said, if you and Tom were to sit down at the opposite side of the table with us, and we said we have this much amount of money to spend on a budget, we'd be able to roll our sleeves up,
Right.
listen, and get a fair budget out.
Yeah. That's the way it should be. You can't be afraid of the conversation. And that's my main concern about the public comment being stifled. It's really stifled, is that the folks who are stifling it are afraid to hear it. They really want to be dictators. And this is not a dictatorship. We cannot go that direction. We should not be a one-party city government. Right now, we are kind of a one-party city government. I appreciate your view and nonpartisan. I think that's very, very important. But many people in city government do not take a nonpartisan view. They're in there as partisans, and it's no good. We do not have a lot of balance, but we do have balance on the Board of Public Works, and I hope that we can maintain that.
I hope so, and I can't help but to notice it, and this is the last time I'll reference the Board of Aldermen. I have to do a call out to Alderwoman Elizabeth Liu, and I think she is she may be part of the same party as folks in FAR, but she really cares about her constituents. She cares about her people.
That too. Yep.
And when she just asks too many questions, people get irritated. And I don't think that's the way we should be running our government.
No.
I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. The goal of the Board of Aldermen should not be to have the shortest meeting possible. It should be to get the work done and find good solutions. And so when people even members of the board are criticized for asking too many questions, come on. That's no way to do it.
And she's always a very lovely tone. And we all can get hot under the collar. And that's one of the things that I have really tried hard to do when I know that people are going to get upset when I disagree. I try to use a measured tone. I've gotten better as I've gotten older. When I was young, we get,
Sure.
we all mellow a little bit with age. But I just want to continue to bring a different perspective and for citizens to feel like they can come to a meeting and they can talk if they have something that needs that needs to be fixed.
Right. We don't want to intimidate our constituents because in the end we do work for them.
Exactly.
They're the ones who vote us in. The fellow board members aren't the ones who got us elected. We don't work for them, as you said before. We work for the folks at home. We want to make sure we can maintain that. Let's talk a little bit about the new Public Works building. It's been approved, right? I think you voted against that one.
I did vote against that one.
And what was your reasoning for voting against? Tell us a little bit about the background. What were the conversations you had about sticking in the old facility versus building a new facility? First off, we're talking about a new facility located at the landfill, right? Mostly offices.
Correct.
Okay.
So when I said about Burke Street that it was going to be that they quoted the price of $58 million, and they were initially the plan was they were going to do an office building first, and it was going to be tied to the Performing Arts Center. That fell apart. I think what the powers that be learned from that is people get sticker shock. So with this Public Works facility, we had, it's an office building. So I recognize that we have buildings that have mold. They're in great need of repair. I wanted an apples to apples. I wanted a whole, whether we move Parks and Rec, Street Department, everyone else, and the offices over to the landfill. I wanted that price. Well, that's not the price I got. What I wanted was, what's the price of that? And then what would the price of keeping the facilities we currently have and fixing all the health hazards? And what I got was, this is how much it would be to add an addition on to our existing. So it was really not an apples to apples. It was really They only gave the price of the office facility, which, that's obviously a lot less expensive than if you're moving the street department and Parks and Rec.
Right. Right. So the numbers were presented in such a way as to try to steer the decision. But it's not only deceiving the public, which I think is terrible, but it's really an attempt to manipulate the information that the board members themselves have access to.
It's,
And that's not right.
it's not right. And when we were talking about public comment, part of my objection is to putting over to the landfill. They didn't include the neighbors enough. And to say it's going to be an office facility, and now I think that they said, well, we can put everyone else over there but the mechanics. That's not an honest conversation.
No, it's
with,
not.
With the people.
No, it's not an honest conversation. So they start with the small package, try to make it as inoffensive as possible, and a small price tag, which I think they know is not true. And sure enough, of course, the price with time goes on. Now the building is now several $1 million more than initially proposed.
It's several $1 million more.
Have they broken ground yet?
No.
No. So as soon as they break ground, it's going to go up even further.
Right. It absolutely
everything.
will. And when we had a meeting, it was joint with the folks from the infrastructure committee, and we just had a discussion from the architect. There were no motions on the agenda. Nothing about how much things were going to cost. We get into the meeting, lo and behold, they were asking for several more $1 million. And I said, well, I didn't see that on the agenda. Well, that was a discussion item. Well, why wasn't that item listed?
Yeah, trying to manipulate and deceive. And I think it's vitally important that you get reelected. And I would really like to see Lori Ortolano on that board too, because if Shannon is there and you are there and Lori is there, then I think that we have, the citizens of Nashua have the representation to begin to tease out some of the truth on some of these proposals so that we can make decisions, or the board can make decisions based on true numbers, on true information. And that's really what we need in order to maintain the balance and to avoid a dictatorship.
And I will say, I like how Shannon asks questions. We don't agree 100% of the time.
Sure.
We don't vote. I don't expect anyone to vote lockstep with me.
Right.
I have my reasons. Someone else may have their reasons, but I don't question their integrity or their the fact that they're there for the people. And
That's important.
And I think Shannon has done that.
Great.
And I hope if Lori gets, I'm sure Lori would do that too.
I think so. Tracy, we're out of time. It goes by so quickly. Thank you very, very
So
much for
good
coming
seeing
in.
you, David.
Best
Thank
of
you
luck
for-
on this election. I really hope that folks at home listen and reelect you and get Lori in there too.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
And folks at home, I want to thank you too for tuning in. You're watching Perspectives. My name is David Schoneman, here with Commissioner Tracy Pappas from the Board of Public Works. We hope that you will make a decision to maintain balance in public works and balance in city government with big election this year. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.